All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Hey, this is going to be another video based on mechanics work. I did some repair work, a timing belt, water pump, and just some classic mechanics work, maintenance on my father-in-law's old truck. I do 99% of my own mechanics work on everything I own, whether it's the snowblower here, the side-by-side, my model airplanes back here, you know, which I like to work on, the engines, stuff like that. It saved us thousands of dollars. Now, this channel has always been about preparedness. That's always been kind of the main focus, whether we, get off track with hobbies and different things like that. But the main focus of this channel has been preparedness. And I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately. It's like, why do you collect tools? Why do you go buy, why are you interested in tools still? I mean, for the most part, I can afford to go send my car to a mechanic if I want to. But the reality is, if you can do your own work, you can literally save thousands. It's going to cost you time, but the other thing that you gain from it is experience. Now, if you can learn how to do your own maintenance, learn how to work on an internal combustion engine, they're all kind of the same. That opens this up to small engines, like I said, motorcycle repair. It could be a job that you have to get if times get tough. I think that there's always been a need for people who can do stuff. My main job is creative work. It's office work. It's basically I'm doing concepts and pie in the sky things that are out in the future. But a lot of my hobbies have to do with repair and maintenance and doing stuff with our hands, actually getting something done. In the late 90s to I think 2000 or 2001, I worked as a mechanic, an aircraft mechanic. So I did work professionally and make money with tools. And that's where I kind of developed my love of tools and love of mechanics work. And now I'm able to kind of do that as a hobby and not a career, which may or may not be a good decision for you. I'm going to show you kind of what I've landed on, or what I would suggest for getting into starting your tool collection and kind of weeding out the unnecessary stuff. It's going to be different depending on what you're deciding to do. If you're going to go into classic cars, it's going to be different than if you own a BMW or a Volkswagen or an import that you're just maintaining as a commuter car or whatever. You have to tailor it to your needs because it's going to be quite a bit different. But what I'm going to show you is what's worked for me. I've been able to maintain most of these vehicles and equipment with what I'm going to show you here. And this is a small toolbox, really. I mean, there's not a whole lot here. All right, so let's get into it, and I'll let you know what I think you should start with tools. Unless you have a lift or some really well-lit area, you're probably going to be working, I mean, it's the joke, but under a shade tree or in a two-car, one-car garage, a barn, something that's usually kind of dark, not very well lit. This is all kind of, you're not doing this as a profession, so the lighting is always the main thing. So I would recommend investing in finding some sort of light that's a good, like a floodlight of some sort. So I picked up this Icon a little while ago, and it's pretty cool. I mean, you can actually do different color, different types of light with it. It's not as bright in some cases as I'd like it to be, but it's got a magnet on it, so you can hook it onto the underside of the hood, your fender well, the side of the car, whatever you want to do, and you can plant this thing and really get some good lighting. And I was doing some ball joints last week, and I used this thing a lot. I mean, I would just, and it's rechargeable, so you can just recharge the batteries. I've used this one for years. It's just a real basic floodlight. Batteries are going dead. But it's got a magnet on it, as you can see, and a stand. And you can do the same thing. It's not as versatile as this one or as bright as the Icon, but just some sort of floodlight. I think I have another one over there that's fine. It's really dead. But magnet, very important. Have that thing charged up and ready to go. So a good light, light your area, light under the fender well when you're doing brakes. It's very dark under there, hard to see what's going on. So get a good light. Okay, you're gonna need sockets. Sorry, I've got kind of a weird frame here. The thing that you're gonna build your kit around is most likely going to be 3/8. So these are all magnetic trays, but you're gonna have metric and then SAE right here, 3/8. This is what I work out of for the majority of the time. A good 3/8 deep socket. These are all Craftsman. I think these are Craftsman USA. There's so many sockets on the market right now. A lot of these I got years ago, probably over 20 years ago I've had these. I did have to replace some of these tools about 20 years ago because I got a lot of them stolen. But some of them I did manage to either replace with USA-made sockets like these 3/8 drive. These are all US, I believe. But Craftsman are okay. The new Craftsman I think are fine. If it was me and I was doing this all over again, I would look at something like, I mean, there's a few sets back here. These wobbly sockets are made by Gear Wrench. Gear Wrench stuff is really good. I would probably go with that. I'd probably try to find this kit at Gear Wrench. I know you can go to like Lowe's and you can still buy Craftsman. Sometimes you can buy the big kit with hundreds of pieces and sockets in there, and that may be the way to go as well. I don't know the pricing on that stuff, but if you're trying to put together your own kit, you know, you have to kind of start here, your 3/8. From there, you can go into these really shallow, like super shallow 3/8 sockets. These are a little more specialty, I think, in my opinion. But if you really want to get down to it, these are 3/8, and they don't, you know, overall they're about the same, you know, height as that. But you know, you can get into stuff like this, like these Astro pneumatic, you know, super shallow, you know, things like this. The thing is with modern cars, and this is one thing that I'm realizing, the tool market in the last 5 years has been really crazy innovative. And so you're seeing a lot of these things that are really thin, long reach type stuff. And this is important for modern cars, especially if you have something, you know, fairly new. You're just going to be in there trying to get into tight spaces, loosen up belts, or, you know, remove alternators, that type of stuff. And you just need that reach sometimes. So these are really shallow. This is a super cool tool. I've used this quite a few times on my father-in-law's truck. I changed the starter, and stuff that would be impossible with your standard wrenches and ratchets. Like this thing can get in there and just, I mean, you can feed it through little spots, you know, in the engine compartment under the fender well there. So it's pretty cool. And so I would say this is maybe not your bread and butter here. This is like an add-on. But what you're going to want is a basic deep and shallow. You could get a medium. Gear Wrench makes a really nice medium-sized socket. If you can only swing one size and you're on a big budget, Gear Wrench makes a really compelling medium depth socket. So I'd go with that and just do a standard and an SAE and a metric set. 3/8. So let's cover ratchets while we're into the sockets. You obviously can't run these by themselves. You need some sort of ratchet. If I were to do this again, and I've done this. This is what I used for years before I started kind of collecting tools on my own. When I worked as a mechanic, my main ratchet back in the day was a 36 tooth version of this. This is a snap-on long ratchet. Okay, so not the extra long, it's not the standard. This is just a long handled ratchet. This is the FL80. So this is an 80 tooth. They're dual 80 technology. One of the best ratchets you can buy. Very expensive, but get them on eBay. You know, you can save some money doing that. I really enjoy using this one. I like the chrome finish. I'll show you another option here in a second if you want to find something new and you don't want to pay this snap-on prices. There's some really, really good options out there right now. But this is what I would get. I would get 3/8 right here. This is your 3/8 setup. And then the other thing is quarter drive. I use quarter drive stuff. I mean, this is your bread and butter here. This is going to get the heavy work done for the most part on most standard automotive, minus heavy equipment and diesel. But to get to this stuff, a lot of times you need to get, the shroud. There's so much plastic and, there's a lot of interior components on these cars, and you're going to be in there with a 10 millimeter, most likely, or 8 millimeter, taking off shrouds and engine stuff, engine covers. Quarter drive, same thing, deep, shallow, quarter and 3/8. So start here, work here, and then once you've established that, get yourself a nice set of Gear Wrench or Snap-on or whatever, get yourself some wobbly sockets. You will use these things way more than you think. You'd be surprised how much you use the quarter drive stuff. This gets used constantly when I'm doing any sort of automotive work and small engine work. I mean, this is all you're going to use. You're probably going to hardly use the 3/8. But for the 3/8 ratchet, my favorite ratchet has been, over the years, the standard handle Snap-on quarter drive ratchet. 36 tooth, This is one I bought 20 years ago. It's got a lot of, this is the one that's got the most wear and tear out of all of them. So it gets used all the time. No, it doesn't have the most awesome back drag of all the new stuff. It's not as smooth. It needs, it's not the 72 or 82 thing. It's pretty coarse, but it's your bread and butter. This thing will get everything done, and it's small. You can get it into tight spots. You'll be surprised at how much you can do with a quarter drive ratchet. Even this short one right here. I'm into stuff under dashes, everywhere with this thing. It's what gets used, and it shows by how much wear compared to all the other ones, how much wear is on it. So these two right here, in my opinion, you're gonna hear a lot of opinions. Get the short, the standard one, and then get the long handle, whatever. This is what I would do right here. Long handled 3/8, short to standard handle, quarter drive. These are your two, in my opinion, if you have this two sizes in ratchets, you're gonna be covered for probably 75% of what you're gonna do on automotive. From there, you're gonna have to specialize, you're gonna have to customize it, you're gonna have to figure out what it is that you want to do, and that's where you're gonna have to go. It's your specific application. But I used these two ratchets when I was working on airplanes back in the 90s, and it's like that's all I really ever needed. We use these constantly with some good extensions. You get yourself a good extension, a nice long extension, which I have a bunch down there, and a small socket. You can really get into tight spots. It's amazing what you can do. Don't underestimate the quarter drive. A good quarter drive set. I can't stress that enough. Quarter drive, yes, you have to have a 3/8. You're not going to be able to do the heavy lifting, but to get where you need to go on most engines, you gotta have this right here. And then from there you can customize. There's these little tiny, Titan micro spinner ratchets that are just, these are actually way more useful than you think. This is more like I used this the other day just to try to get a little nut off of the radiator that I couldn't get to, and it's like you end up cracking it loose, and then you can spin it. It's just like a spinner. It's really, really handy. A little more specialized. You don't need this. You can get it with this, but again, you can kind of customize it from there. What else? This is the day and age of the icon tools. I just picked up a bunch of extensions because I was lacking in all extensions. These are very handy. These are wobbly extensions. They have them all different sizes. This is the 3/8 right here. And if you push it all the way on, most sockets, these Craftsman work fine. If you push it all the way on, it does not wobble at all. If you pull it off one click, you have kind of a wobbly socket. So you don't really need to go 3/8 wobbly. You kind of have that with, you can see how that wobbles just a little bit. A lot of you guys have done your own stuff. This is not anything new, but there's a lot of guys out there who haven't been exposed to this stuff, and it's just it's a really good time to be able to buy these kind of semi-premium tools at a budget price. So that's a good set to get. You could even just this set right here, where it covers your quarter drive, 3/8, and then a couple of 1/2-inch drives for if you want to upgrade. But this is the wobbly set from Icon, and yeah, the quarter drive is amazing. The knurling is just, this is the thing when you get really cheap extensions, it's they're smooth usually, and what you really want with an extension is knurling on it. So Mac does that, Snap-on does that. These are the new Icons, they do that, and these are just so nice to be able to quickly zip out, and then you can pull this off and the zip fasteners out with the knurling. It's such an upgrade from a smooth extension. So these are premium. If you're an enthusiast, you're going to go buy some Snap-on stuff. I like Snap-on stuff. It's American made. It is almost flawless as far as their ratchets go. I love using them. And if you're going to go out and get all dirty and muddy and cold, and you're going to replace a starter, an alternator, something like that, I want to enjoy the tools that I have. I want to like them. But these are expensive, and if you don't want to wait around on eBay, you want to get something now and not wait for a deal, there's some options here that might work for you. So this covers all your bases right here almost. Some Capri tools here. So this is a whole ratchet, kind of standard size ratchet set from Capri Tools. You have your 1/4, 3/8, and then 1/2 inch. I'll probably be doing a review on these at some point just on their own after I get a little time handling them. But if it was me, I would just go on to Capri's website and I would pick up this guy right here, the standard handle 90 tooth ratchet. This is going to be fine. I mean, people are, oh, does it work? It's going to work unless you just abuse it, put a big pipe on it and break it. It's probably going to be just fine for years. But, they sell rebuild kits. It's all very good customer service from what I understand. This thing is nice. I mean, it's right up there with the Snap-on. I mean, it really is. The chrome, the fit and finish, the feel of it, the balance of it. I've never really been a comfort grip guy, but like I could see this is a really nice grip. It's not too fat. It looks good. I like, even the colors are unique. That's kind of cool. But this is a very fine and very low, a very low back drag on the 3/8 here. I mean, it's just, it's super smooth, unbelievable. And these, you can get this ratchet right here for, I think for under $40. So a fraction of what you pay for Snap-on. I would snap these up right away, or something like this, or a gear wrench, something. But these are cool. I think that they're just a good quality one. You can also grab their 1/4 inch drive. They make long ones, short ones, flexi ones. The 1/4 inch drive is not as impressive in my mind as the Snap-on. It's quite a bit. Can't really see it there, but the head of that thing is quite a bit bigger, and the shank here is quite a bit thicker. Unnecessarily, so I'm not as impressed with the 1/4 drive. That said, it'll work just fine. I'll use it. I mean, it's going to be fine. It's also a 90 tooth. And then if you really want to this is probably the last priority if you're doing your own stuff, but a 1/2 inch drive. I don't use a lot of 1/2 inch drives, but I figure I'd give this a shot. This is in my opinion, this is a short-handled 1/2 inch drive. This is short. There are other options available for 1/2 inch. Like when you get into that, you're going to want big. You're going to want long breaker bar. You're going to want breaker bars or something like this where you can get in there and actually take advantage of that drive size. If you're doing, and this kind of stuff is very important if you're starting to specialize in suspension work, changing out shocks, ball joints, any sort of the suspension piece, axle type stuff. It's just bigger and heavier, and you're going to need, your 3/8 stuff is nowhere. It's just so small compared to this stuff. And, any sort of ball joint work, this is what you're going for. This, yes, but it's probably going to be a bit short. However, you could start it with this and zip the bolt out with this or whatever. But, there's so many options out there at reasonable prices now. We live in like I said, a good time for tools. You don't have to pay $200 for a ratchet anymore. You can buy a whole set for $100 and have a high premium, something you'll be proud of for a long time. This box right here, this is oddly, this is another thing. We're going to cover screwdrivers in a second, but since we're going to start at the top, get a pick set. You will be surprised at how much. These are Mac. I have some Mac stuff. I like Mac stuff. Maybe the modern Mac isn't as great, but I got these years ago. Some of these are probably almost 30 years old. Get a pick set. Icon makes them. You can get. I mean, every company makes them. You just get a good quality set that's not super brittle. They will bend a little bit, but you don't want super brittle pick sets because you don't want those things snapping off and falling in an engine and tearing up valves or whatever. Get a good quality one. They do make a difference. There are cheap sets, yeah, for a couple of bucks, but spend a little bit more. They know how to make them. From the premium brands, but you use these all the time. I always use these things. Taking out O-rings, cleaning off, I don't know, RTV out of a gasket seal. I use these a lot. I mean, just a ton. Always use the pick sets just for oddball stuff, in your array of stuff. What's kind of new on the market are these mini pry bars. This is like a straight pry bar. These are great. They're not expensive. These are Tecton. They're made in the U.S. by, I don't know who these are made by. I forget. But there's different angles that you can get. A whole bunch of companies make these pocket pry bars, and these are great because a lot of guys, we would just take a screwdriver and use them as a pry bar, break them, and you'd be in a world of hurt. But these are like a spring steel, and they're made for that kind of abuse. Then you don't have to tear up your nice screwdrivers. So yeah, have an assortment of pry bars, picks. Even if you can't find a pick, get some dental picks. You know, these are nice for same thing. You can find these for pretty cheap. But this is kind of like, I would consider this actually pretty crucial as well. Kind of an odd thing. Next thing you're going to need is a good set of screwdrivers. My screwdriver set are Mac. I found these are new. I bought these all new. I found some of these other pieces at like yard sales and stuff like that. This is your bread and butter right here. Unfortunately, you'll use this as a pry bar more than anything, but when I was an aircraft mechanic, we used this all the time. We actually used this to push off to slide off the push rod tubes on airplane engines. You have to push that spring and slide those push rod tubes in. We use this one all the time, actually. But after that was over, I never really used it. You're going to use this size a lot. What is this? A one? I don't know what you call these. Just a standard Phillips. You know, your standard flathead and Phillips. But you'll use these all the time. There's so many screwdrivers on the market. Get one that you think is comfortable. Don't cheap out on it. Get something good. You don't have to get a Mac or a Snap-on, but like, you know, there's Williams that make the old Snap-on handles, and they're just fine, and they're a fraction of the price of Snap-on. That's what I would probably get. I'd go look up a Williams, made in the U.S., nice set. But then if you want to expand out from there, if you're doing again suspension work, find yourself these cotter key pullers. These, again, like the picks, you know, like these and the picks. These just, I mean, it just saves your hands and your screwdriver. I mean, they're just great. They work I use those way more than I would ever have thought. I don't use this thing very much, this long screwdriver. I actually use this to put like on an engine and like listen, you know. I use this to like, you know, if there's a noise or rattle or something in an engine, I'll take and put this on a certain part and like listen, use this as kind of like a stethoscope. That's mainly what I use that for, but it's like it's called a cabinet screwdriver, really long, nice screwdriver. Let's see what we got here. Pliers. Okay, pliers are fun. Pliers are fun. You got to get an assortment of pliers. You will collect pliers if you're into this game. But the main ones to get would be a good, doesn't have to be you don't have to go crazy, but find yourself a decent quality needle nose. You're going to use a needle nose pliers all the time. Again, this goes back to cotter keys. This is prying stuff out of the way. This is reaching in and picking up a bolt or something that fell. Get yourself something like this. You know, Harbor Freight does the knockoff, you know, pliers, Snap-on ones, and these are nice. I've been kind of testing these. I don't have a final verdict on them, but I've been beating on them pretty good, and they seem to be holding up. They do twist a little bit, but I think they all do. But again, it sort of falls in line with the needle nose. I think these are a little big. I think you just need something like this. You know, this is prime for just kind of everything, you know. But also pliers, you know, get yourself a good set of pliers. Knipex makes really nice pliers. I've used these for years. They're just great. They're like, they have cutters on them, and they're just nice. If you want to step up to a really heavy duty, beefy set of pliers, there's just all kinds. You can get into the specialized stuff, the you know, the little hose pliers. These are great, but you know, probably not necessary until you're a little further along, you know, in your collection. I would get something like this. You'd be surprised at how many bolts get rounded off just from people working on stuff before you, or maybe you did something stupid. These will get you out of a bind. You know, this Knipex, these are, I don't know, what are they called? These are alligator pliers. There's Cobra pliers with the button. I'd probably get the Cobra ones, but these are just so aggressive. They will tear up the fastener like crazy, but you will get it out. Trust me. I've done it many times. Snap ring pliers, you know, yeah, you're going to need snap ring pliers at some point, probably, maybe not super critical. But yeah, get yourself a basic set of pliers. Needle nose, standard. These are your bread and butter here. Also, if you want a really good set of dikes or side cutters, Klein, yes, Klein, Home Depot style. 30, 40 bucks, not cheap, but these things will just, they're just butter. Really, really nice. I mean, decent size. This is a good set right here. This collection right here, this is great. You know, that'll do, you know, 70% of what you're going to need to do. There's going to be specialized stuff you're going to need to do, but this will get a lot of it done. You know, start there and start with quality. Don't just buy junk. You know, you get stuff, you end up with stuff like this. You know, this is from Harbor Freight years ago, Pittsburgh, and I hate this thing. It's just big and frumpy and not precision, and it's splayed out. You know, I have it. I don't like it. Never have. You know, from there you can adjust. You know, there's all sorts of different stuff you can get. I have some other pliers up there and other boxes and stuff like that. Moving down, we've already seen some of the stuff out of here. I'll put these back. I've already shown you what I think you should do for ratchets. Do you need torque wrenches? I have 1/2 inch, 3/8 quarter drive snap-on torque wrenches. Probably don't need them. Probably should get, you know, what if you're going to get a torque wrench, which one should you get? You're going to use the 1/2 inch more than anything. Why? Lug nuts. You're going to be swapping tires. You're going to be taking wheels on and off. Like, this is the one you're probably going to use. This one, if you start doing heavier mechanics work, 3/8, that's going to get majority of your bolts. This, you know, if you're working on transmissions and stuff like that, and little transmission bolts, yeah, okay. But for the most part, quarter drive is just make it tight and not too tight. Use a smaller handled ratchet and don't go crazy, and you can probably kind of figure out the torque yourself. But yeah, there's a standard handle snap-on service ratchet style standard handle. I have a flexible one there. This is nice. Doesn't get used as much as you'd think, but you know, in certain situations that's what you need. So yeah, have fun customizing your ratchets. Get a bunch of get long extensions. Here's some old Craftsman long extensions. Never underestimate a quarter drive and a long extension. I learned this when I was working on aircraft stuff. You can just kind of stand back and enjoy the ride. You know, don't get all your hand all in there if you don't have to. Get away from it. Get something out there that you can get some, you know, get a good angle on it. Okay, so last but not least, in your beginning kit, what you're going to want is a good set of standard size or slightly longer wrenches. Okay, that's I think you got to invest in some good wrenches. You can go to Harbor Freight, get the Icons, stay away from the Pittsburgh, get something quality. You're going to use these a lot. You're going to use this size probably more than any of the specialty stuff, any of the shorty ones. You know, I have this is a set of Craftsman Professional series. I've had these for probably 20 years. I think I got these just before Sears was, you know, going out of business or whatever. These, I believe, are made by Armstrong, which you can still buy. I think you can buy Armstrong ones that look just like this. And I think they're the exact same wrench. But I've put some good wear on these. These have served me pretty well, and I'll see if I can kind of show you the difference here. I'll show you the difference. Here we go. This is perfect. So I'll show you the difference here. This is a Craftsman, a Chinese-made Craftsman 12 millimeter ratcheting wrench, and this is a good one. I rarely use it. You can tell by the wear. This is all faded, scratched up. But this is both of these are 12 millimeters, right? Look at the head size of the professional U.S. made one versus the Chinese one right here. This right here matters. Like if you're getting into something tight, you're in there trying to loosen something up by a, you know, what do you call it? Like there's an alternator, something you got to get out there. It's always tight. You crack the thing loose with one end and then you have to try to get in there. This is the difference. Look how small that is and trim. I mean, it's so much smaller. The thickness is about the same. The feel is the same. This side, it's ratcheting, so you can't really compare it. It's also magnetic for some reason. I don't know why. But that's the big difference right there. You're going to be able to get into tighter spots with the more professional grade stuff. And I think that's, you know, if you're just starting out, maybe something like, you know, from Lowe's and, so, you know, Chinese, whatever. Yeah, they're going to make them thicker because they don't break as easy, right? So that you may not be able to warranty it, so they just make everything. They just overbuild everything. But this is a matter of being able to get into tight spot and not get in a tight spot. And I tested this on this last job. that I did. This one rarely fit into anything, whereas this one could get into just about any spot. And these are fairly thin, maybe not as thin as like a snap-on, but pretty good. So get a good set of wrenches, standard and metric. Don't hold back, and don't do the skips. Get the ones that are full. Like, don't do any of the skips. You know, make sure you find a set that doesn't cheap out on that kind of stuff. Those Chinese ratcheting Craftsmen, they have skips in them. I don't like that. That means you have to have both sizes and all that, and you can, you know, you need them sometimes. So try to find ones that are like a complete set. I have some oversized. This goes up to 1 inch on the standard, and I have some oversized ones over there in metric that go up a little bit. They don't fit in the toolbox. So that is pretty much right here what I would say would be your core starter kit. You can find it all sometimes in a kit, but if you want to take some time and find pieces that you enjoy using, put together your own kit. You know, I'd spend a little bit more money on, say, a ratchet, because you know it's gonna. If you get something you don't like, you're gonna be using this a lot. Even if you're just doing your own stuff. So, you know, find spots that you want to spend a little more money on, and maybe save some money on the sockets. You know, there's some good, decent price sockets and stuff out there, but don't cheap out on the wrenches. This is your last line of defense here. If you can't get into something with a ratchet, you're going to be using a wrench, and you're going to be trying to get in some tight spot. Don't cheap out with some thick-walled Stanley or something you can find. Like, they're not that good. You're gonna regret it. So get something thin wall, small-headed, thin, you know, something that works good. And then from there, go out and, you know, specialize again. Use small ones, or, you know, offset ratchets and stuff like that, or wrenches and specialty things, you know. So that's basically that. All right, so that is basically what I would suggest somebody just starting out. You need your basics. You need your ratchet, you need your socket set, you need a wrench set, screwdrivers. That's your main core set. That'll do a lot of stuff. From there, you need hammers, you need specialty equipment, you need to look at your gear, look at what you're trying to work on, and tailor it accordingly. But I think your core tools need to be of at least mid-tier quality. Don't settle for cheap. Don't go out there and, you know, get everything Pittsburgh, just cheapo stuff that you're never going to like using, and it'll break on you all the time, or it's too thick to actually fit in a tight space. You're working on your gear. You need to tailor it to that. Start out, get what you can get at the highest quality, but that's your core right there. From there, save some money on hammers, save a little bit money on sockets. There's a lot of good options with Gear Wrench and some of these other ones out there. You can save some money on it and still get high quality stuff. That's what I have. If you have any suggestions to help somebody just starting out, please leave it in the comments. Comment, share it, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. What would you put in there? What would you put in their first kit? How would you build that out? All right, thanks again for watching. Appreciate your subscribership. See you on the next one.